everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of King Me Rev's Hype Podcast. And this is going to be a hell of a show for you. And it's going to be a hell of a weekend. Let me tell you, I got a lot of busy shit going on. Let me
I'm
explain.
excited for you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our guest appropriately, as deservingly so, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans of all genders, please welcome to today's episode, we have Sylvan Moreland, the enigmatic leader of the Forest of the Lost. Sylvan, thank you for joining us.
It's me. Thank you, my brother. How you doing on this fine day? We got the hummingbirds flying around out here. We're not melting because it's not 1,000 degrees, but it's just bright enough for us to make sure we protect our eyes out here and stay safe, right?
Right. Absolutely. Ready for the day. Got a show coming up tonight. Going to be heading down to Watertown, Massachusetts for Chaotic in Deep Water. Going to be
Very
running crew like we always do. So be carrying lots of heavy things around and being confused as shit as always, which really happens. We're supposed to put it
it's not too hot.
here. That's really how it goes. So
And then change it back to that other way. Sorry. Change my mind.
yeah, exactly. That's how they love to do it. Every time, it seems. Every time. But yeah, no, very excited for today's episode. I've been watching your videos very often for the past year or so. I feel like
Good. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much.
Right. You know, I've seen you at places like Supernova. I just recently saw you at New Order Wrestling.
Yes, sir.
I've yet to make myself down to PAPW, but I definitely feel like I saw you somewhere else. But honestly, I go to so many places, it's hard to keep it all track. It's hard to keep track of it.
Yeah, I try and bounce around, just trying to spread the word of truth and get in wherever they'll have me to be true. Speaking of Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling, tomorrow, the 25th, we have Unbreakable, and that's in East Haven, Connecticut at 662 Co Avenue. Doors open 6:30, and the bell tolls at 7 o'clock. So we can talk about that later on, but just wanted to mention it since you brought up Paradise Alley.
Of course, and
Yes,
I've had many of folks come on the show. I'm going to be having Killa J will be on the show next week as well. Next Saturday, I'm going to be
Very good.
hosting, and I know PAPW. I have yet to have the distinct pleasure of going down there, and I know that it's Paul Roma, right? How can you go wrong with that? So it's certainly on the list of places I need to go, certainly on the places that I need to. And I told myself in the summer I'd be able to, especially since I travel everywhere with my daughter, sometimes it's a little more difficult, right? We as adults, we can endure 3-hour drives better than a child. So especially both ways, where it's 2.5 hours one way and 2.5 hours the other way, and the other way is at 1 a.m. It's not as easy for children as it is for adults. So as a father, I have to be responsible. All right, guys. Otherwise, I'd probably just sleep in the car and not give two shits. I'll be honest.
Why not? Go to a rest stop and catch some Z's, right? At least now they got tablets and stuff instead of those little Tiger handhelds of anything and everything that they used to make. Not to show my age or anything like that, but
Right. No, hey, say it all the time. I'm 40, so I've seen plenty. But, and then Mr. Mancini, right? I don't know how that happened, but he follows me on TikTok and we like each other's stuff all the time. And I haven't really talked to him before. And maybe if I walked in the room, he wouldn't recognize me off the bat, but I definitely interact with him a lot on social media, and he seems like a super cool guy. I mean, once again, he's also been very established in the universe. I shouldn't have to sing his praises, but I can. But,
Yes,
the both of them have done so much.
Sorry about that. Yeah, he puts on a lot of great stuff. Him and Mr. Roma have been friends for about as long as you've been alive now, going on 40 years of friendship, and they were up and down the road together during the time in what was formerly known, WWF at that time. And just a lot of good value that comes out of their experience and knowledge. And the thing is, people just need to listen, and someone who's listened to, obviously I trained there as well myself. So I've taken everything on, and Miss Killa J there, now J to 2 belts, as she calls herself. So there's something to be said of that as well. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And her, she's so young. What is she? I think she's like 23 right now. Oof, she's got so much time, so much potential. She's very talented. Very good friends. I would say very good friends of the channel.
Very good.
Um,
Looking forward to that episode.
it's going to be great. So, yeah, thanks for being on. Speaking of Unbreakable, we could just break right into it. Pun intended there.
Do it.
Danny Blaze. Sylvan's coming for you, Blaze. You dropped some absolute knowledge bombs in some videos lately, and some tingles up and down the spine. Go ahead and tell us about that.
I try and just, like I said, the word of truth that people fail to recognize, because one example being the masks that people wear on a daily basis, because they're too afraid of what society thinks of them, and they're too afraid to step outside, right? Because you've seen there's been scientific studies where there's 10 people and there's 9 people who are in on it. And if they say 2 + 2 is 5, which we know, I'm pretty sure it's 4 if I remember. Math isn't my strong suit, but 2 + 2 is 4. But those 9 people will say that it's 5, and that one person will go along with the crowd. They'll go along like the sheep off to the slaughter, right? And the cows going moo moo. Why is that? Because people are too afraid to stand for themselves, because they only want to be accepted. The problem is the ignorance of most people don't accept people for how they are, because they don't meet their specific mentality. It doesn't align with their ideals. There's a reason why on social media they'll only show you stuff that you've already looked at, because they don't want to disrupt, right? I find that all to be unbalanced. Even though they think it's balanced because everything's fine and I'm only seeing what I want to. No. I am the true balance. So what I hope to achieve through the different postings, the videos, talking to people in person as well, accept people as they are. And anybody trying to be someone else, they're going to fail. And I say that because you can never be as good at being somebody as you are at being yourself. The biggest step for that is to accept who you are. Accept your faults, accept your strengths, and give yourself credit for those strengths. That's another thing people fail to recognize, the things that they're good at. Instead, they want to downtrod upon themselves. But before I get too far off, because we all know I love to talk a little bit, you talk about Mr. Danny Blaze coming up. That's, like I said, that's Unbreakable tomorrow at Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling. And Mr. Blaze said some things. I mentioned him. He's been doing great. Shining star that he's got to wear those shades while he's catching the waves, because that boy is bright. But apparently not as bright as I'd like to give him credit for, because the things that he said about me and mine, that he's going to put me down or he's going to put me in my place. No. But that's okay tomorrow, because all he'll simply have to do when I ask him to become a new brother within the force of loss is simply say yes and accept his better life. Instead of talking about my brother Ryan Malice, instead of talking about that I got this God complex and what have you. No. I am a brother to my family. I'm the leader of the force of the lost. I guide them. I am not, nor have I claimed to be a Messiah, nor a God. My last name is not Applewhite, nor is it Koresh, and my name is not Jones. That's the thing people need to recognize, because they kind of lose sight of it. But I am looking forward to meeting Mr. Danny Blaze. And so should be a good time, and I hope everyone comes out there to East Haven.
Whew. Ready to atone those sins, my children. Okay.
Sir, indeed. He's I don't want him to get ahead of himself, as he's beginning to look like a center of pride before tomorrow.
So much you said there. Now, you talked about being a brother, right? My brother's keeper is the term that comes to mind.
Very well said. Yes, sir.
You being the leader of the Forest of the Lost, who who are your brothers? Who are your sisters? Um who do you lead as of now?
Yes, sir. So there's a number of, my family stretches far and wide. Not all of them compete within the squared circle, but there's many that goes far and wide. But currently, it is my brother Ryan Malice who showed his loyalty by something that he worked hard and long for. He had a nice long beard, and to show his loyalty, said, "I'm going to shave this off as my sacrifice." And then, as of more recently, the edge runner, Mr. Damian Black. Because again, people who didn't accept him for who and what he is, the individuals who say that they were going to be there to support him in his futures, in his endeavors, and they failed to do that because words without action are useless and meaningless, because that's all they are. Just as useless as the air you exert to say them or the ink on a piece of paper. Without action, they don't truly have a meaning or value to them. You understand what I'm saying to you? So
Absolutely.
as of now, those are my two brothers and running mates that we continue to spread the word, brother.
Now, going off that context, what was the calling? What was the actions that brought you to the shadows of professional wrestling, that brought you into the squared circle?
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's an excellent question. I appreciate that. And as through life, we all have our own set of ideals, the ideology of what we think is right and just. So for me, I figured, well, a good way to spread, there's a lot of eyes within the world of professional wrestling. It's a very diverse audience of individuals. You have different pay classes, pay grades. You have different races, all these different diversity levels. So how would that not be a good platform to spread my word to a large group of people, especially in a highly concentrated area of professional wrestling, such as the Northeast of New England? So it just makes sense to me. And as I have gone on, I have continued to spread, and I've made contacts, and more people have joined, and they've gathered, they've heard and listened and heeded the word of Sylvan Moreland in the word of truth, to walk and follow the path, because all roads lead back to the forest.
So, you spoke of sacrifice, and it makes me curious. Was there a sacrifice or a trial or a vision that forged you to be this leader?
Yes, sir. And because I am willing to do what needs to be done. When others are fearful, they're afraid. Because the thing is, if you are afraid, if you don't even start, fear is failure. Because if you are so petrified by the fear of failing, you're never going to proceed. Because now you're stuck. You might as well be in quicksand. So there's no possible way you're going to fall forward. Because here's the thing. Even if you try, if you go forward and you fall flat on your face, you're still farther ahead, ain't you? Because you fell forward. You know what I'm saying? So if you think along those lines, why the heck wouldn't you try anyway? Because then you learn. Ideally, you learn from those mistakes and failures. So throughout my life, as everyone else, have experienced a multitude of things, right? Trials. And of course, as the old saying is, you can't have trials without tribulations, right? They have to go together, because no one will just say one at a time. But through all those things, and I am aware enough that I know that I am not special, right? All these people that complain about this and that, a lot of those struggles are not unique. They have been experienced by millions and millions of people throughout time. I respect that it is individual to you, to that individual, because that might feel different than each and every one of those around you. However, you are not the only one to experience that. So with that, Instead of being loathsome and feeling sorry for ourselves or just waiting and waiting for something to happen, for someone to save us, reach out, step up, take action upon yourself to go towards what you want to accomplish. Write it down. Write it in pencil because plans change. You don't want to have to write that all again. You got an eraser on there, right? Or better yet, keep those notes and put it off to the side because this is what I thought maybe 5 months ago, 5 years ago. And now this is the person I am now. This is what I've accomplished. This is what I'm fighting for and towards to accomplish what I want and what those individuals truly deserve. People need to give themselves credit for that, of what they do deserve. That's how I look at it. So, in a nutshell, as a quick way of saying that, I know that all the things that I felt, I am not the only one, but I am the one willing to take action for all those around me. And it's infectious because once people hear that and they go, it's not just me. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one with this debilitating disease. I thought I was the only person who had a parent pass away from something tragic or terrible. I thought that my heart was broken in a specific way and I was the only one. It's not the case. So if we all come together instead of divide, we'll all be that much stronger.
See, you said so many wonderful, elegant things. I can just tell you that much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Oh, I'll keep you on here all day. Well, a 4-hour show, brother. I'll tell you that.
So one of the things you said is, all of them are great, but one thing I just wanted to highlight was the idea of mistakes. I tell people on a very regular basis that we as humans were born without the ability to speak or to walk or to talk or to feed ourselves or to change ourselves, and that everything else is learned behavior, that everything else can be trained. And if you don't understand it on the first try, so what? There was a time where you couldn't speak words, right? So do it. And if you make a mistake, is it really a mistake if you learn from it and you move on? Or was it just a learning experience? Were they mistakes or were they learning experiences? To me, it's a mistake if you don't actually do something. And to put it in your context, actions matter.
100%.
So to put it in your context, what I'm saying is a mistake is what happens when you don't act upon the learned behavior. So
yes, sir.
Kudos.
I look at it as, you can make a mistake. You can have a fault. That's fine. That's to be human. But one thing that I don't accept is making the same mistake repeatedly over and over again. That's the problem.
Right. Must learn. I always go with the idea of fighting the sins of the man and the evils that beset them. Right. It's much more of there's a better conveyance there. There's a better understanding that if you are the source of your own problems, then you need to look inside yourself first and fill that out before you can try one more time. So
absolutely. People are too busy pointing the finger in every other direction instead of looking at the mirror. Maybe it's something that you've done, your actions. And that brings me to the point of, the discussion of nature versus nurture. A lot of people will blame their environment. Well, I grew up in this situation or this scenario. Well, there's a number of other people who have been in a poor state that have risen up and accomplished what they want. And likewise, there have been people in a very good situation and scenario that have gone the opposite route and they go downhill. They drop down like Enron stocks, back in the day. And now you got someone, a perfect example is Richard Sherman, the former football player. He grew up in Southern California. He was in Compton. So he was walking home from school and he saw bodies on the streets. Well, here's a man who ended up going to Stanford because his mother kept him on the straight and narrow. And the people in the city respected his mother and said, "Go home, man. You don't need to be out here." And he listened. He went to Stanford and got a degree in communications. He went to play football, and he was a professional athlete. Now he's he's an analyst. So it can be done. We are not just a product of our environment, because we have control of that too. I believe that we forge and create our own destinies. It doesn't. There's no such thing as fate, right? Fate be damned. Let us be the weavers of our own destiny. Let us create this tapestry of what we want the future to be. So that's just one way that I look at it.
Yeah, and that's absolutely. I mean, myself, I'm originally from Lowell, Massachusetts. I had 18 years. I lived in, West Phoenix, Arizona. And I remember many a times, I mean, pretty much everybody around me was in all kinds of illegal activities. And there was a couple of times where somebody would say, I would be like, "Why are you doing this?" And they're like, "Well, this is what everybody does." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not doing it." So, well, everybody. I'm like, "Yeah, but perfect answer." It's like you can rise above your programming. You can rise above the other people. I couldn't even tell you how many of those people didn't make it to see 18 without being behind bars or dead, right? So as much as we could sit here and say, well, my environment, yeah, is it?
It's not all predicated on that.
Have you given up? Have you let the fear sink so far into your soul that you just won't even try anymore?
That's right. And I think, like you said, you're a testament to that. I'm happy to see you. I'm glad that you're here and you made it this long because you chose to. So I also, with that being said too, thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor. And a big thank you to anybody who takes their time and effort to cover this crazy world that is professional wrestling, be it in the New England area or worldwide. So thank you very much, because it's not like people are paying you the big bucks to go and do this and that. It's teamwork between all the journalistic individuals, as well as the performers, as well as the management, etc. So I wanted to take the time to say thank you very much again for that, sir. I appreciate you.
No, I respect and appreciate that as well. There's you're not wrong. Let's realistically speaking, anybody on this level, we're not doing it for money, because there is no money. There is no money. What money? I spent it in gas just to get there. All right.
This nice tree behind me is real pretty, but it doesn't grow dollar bills, unfortunately. So
unfortunately,
a while ago, still no money.
Still no money. We do it for the love of professional wrestling. And quite frankly, and if there's been a great testimony to what we as a community can do, if we're talking about nature versus nurture, and we're talking about the environment that we have that can show you what can be done, let's hit the bingo card two episodes in a row and talk about the unfortunate tragedy that bestowed upon my friends, Jeremy and Roxanne, when they had a car accident and their young daughter was injured. Now, if there was a different community of individuals, maybe one that did not care as much as the professional wrestling community does care about each other, and is there backstage politics and rumors and high school bullshit? I've seen it many times. However, when a 4-year-old was injured in a car accident, we all stepped up.
Yes.
Thanks to our combined efforts, this child will have a vehicle again. Thanks to the hard work and dedication and sacrifices of the Renegade Wrestling Alliance, Mr. T Phoenix, Mr. AJP, and the rest of the team, all proceeds for the August 8th show of RWA down in Rhode Island will go to Jeremy and Jilliana and Roxanne.
Very good.
And to me, that's a perfect example of choosing your environment wisely. You want to say that you want to be a product of your environment? Pick a better one. I am here.
Put that on a t-shirt. You gotta get those hot off the presses. I'll take 2. Right off the rip, brother.
And there's another, we'll call it logic when it comes to that type of way of thinking that I have seen. And it's the only one that I find incredibly and unabashedly ignorant. And that is specious reasoning. The idea of, well, you know what? Because I have this thing in my hand, this thing is actually a deterrent for polar bears. Because as long as I'm holding it, you guys don't see any polar bears, right? Oh, well, yeah, it's gotta be this magical box, right?
I'm going to disappear. You ready? You can't see me, can you? Can you see me?
It's all over. The people who maybe they blame their environment, maybe they blame their life or their lifestyle. I feel like those people are at least in somewhat rooted in reality. But the people who are like, well, this happened because Eminem thought it was a thing. What? Those things do not connect. Those people have truly been dispersed amongst I don't know where.
And a lot of it too, I think it all just goes into that sheep-like mentality. As people sit there and they look at these, hand computers, these black mirrors, just looking back at them and blinding them with this terrible blue light and everything else. It's like mind control, man. If you see enough of the same thing repeated and repeated and repeated, how many times I got to tell you that 2 + 2 is 5 before you start to believe it? It depends on the strength of your mind and your willpower. Maybe I only have to say it once, as long as other people say, yeah, no, 2 + 2 is 5. Maybe it only takes once, just like that study that I discussed previously. These are things that I think about to try and discuss, to talk about, to get these videos out and everything like that, to, let's say, not necessarily start, but say restart, or give a little bit of a nitrous charge like you're in Fast and the Furious, and start to really kickstart that critical thinking again of, I didn't think of it that way. Or maybe I did before, but through experiences and things like that maybe my mind changed. When we're young and we don't have exposure to all these things, we're fine to run and jump through the sprinklers without a care in the world, because we're not jaded to the external facets outside of our front or backyard. We're just living life and being happy. Now, I understand, right? We've got bills, we've got responsibilities, we got other people that depend on us for things, but let's still try and find those things that make us feel young and carefree, to escape reality, like going to a wrestling show like maybe Paradise Alley tomorrow in East Haven, Connecticut. Escape the reality of what feels like you're boxed into. I've discussed and I've sent messages of how many people live inside of a 3-sided prison. Another name for a 3-sided prison? A cubicle. Right? And you walk in and it's Cubicle City and they're all lined up and people are inside this own little box and world. And there's an open side, but how many of them communicate to each other? And just like this on that computer screen. There's a person 4.5 feet behind him. But, get a little off track, but to keep in mind what helps you feel a little carefree, to escape reality. There's a reason people play video games, they listen to music, nostalgia purposes. They look at and watch movies that they saw when they were 5 and 6 years old, because it unlocks something of where your mind was at that time. There's a reason that every 25 years or so, all these different marketing groups and film and what have you, they do all the remakes of the old stuff. Why? Because now the people who are in an older demographic, what can we do to latch them on? Because people are tied to nostalgia when you had less stuff to worry about. a better time. I feel that a lot of times those are some of the true golden years. You understand what I'm saying?
And, and it's, once again, you said the great term there, critical thinking. I feel like people, they go through these events and experiences without ever truly grasping what they were doing in the first place. I mean, personally, being someone who is a critical thinker, I do that on purpose. Every once in a while, I like to say party like it's 1999. I will literally take out my Nintendo 64. I will put out WrestleMania 2000. I'll play the same Eminem CD and Dr. Dre, still DRE, and maybe some other, some Master P Ghetto D albums.
Yeah, no.
And I will put myself into that mind, that space, because in 1999, I didn't have bills to pay. I didn't have mouths to feed.
Right.
I didn't have responsibilities that felt like the world was crushing down on me. I didn't have a cubicle where 90 people were trapped in the same room, yet we had zero communication with each other or anything of intrinsic value, right? There wasn't a bunch of random people around you that you really knew nothing about, but you had to be a certain way around them so you could keep your job. There wasn't any of those type of things. There was just a kid in his favorite wrestling game, or Zelda, right? There was
Not
just
a care in the world.
not a care in the world. There was just something else to it. And
Mhm.
you really hit some wonderful points there when you said all those different things. And I just wanted to highlight that. And I'm curious, how do you bring that to the ring? Not only just as a performer, a wrestler, etc., but bringing that energy for a crowd.
Well, I am me, and there's no one else that I can be. So why would I try? So there's detractors out there that they'd rather put on the earmuffs and continue to wear this mask, or put a t-shirt in their mouth so they don't want to speak the true feelings. But it's ignorance. But then there's the other individuals that understand and they see what I'm trying to do. I'll come out and it's mixed. Some people cheer, some people jeer. It I pay no never mind, because I go out and I tell people the things that they don't always want to hear. Because sometimes the truth sucks. And you'd rather live in this illusion and disillusion yourself to what reality is. That maybe there is a monster outside your front door. Maybe the boogeyman's closer than you think. We don't know what's going on in these individuals, these power players in the game of life. And we forget or don't want to look at the reality that, you know what, maybe we are just pawns. And I've said before, I have a message placed out on this. They look at us as sheep. Well, last I checked, there's a lot more sheep than there are wolves on Wall Street. So if we rise up and I start to get these people involved, and I always give my opponent in the ring, I give them a chance. I give them the choice to simply say yes, to live the better life and join the force of the lost, take my hand in theirs and embrace each other as brothers. I can't make the choice for them initially. But that being said, I give everyone the opportunity, and I am not responsible for what occurs if they so choose to deny me. That's upon them. That is their sin of pride, greed, and envy of the society around them. Whereas within the forest of the lost, we're all equal. We're all brothers. We're all sisters. We're mothers. We're fathers. We're uncles. We're sons and daughters. At the end of the day, we're people, but we are equal and even. We all contribute. Serve and be served is one of the sayings within the Forest of the Lost. As my brothers and sisters do what needs to be done, as I do what needs to be done, you will also be served and taken care of by your fellow individual. It's all a choice. Everything in life, it's a choice. Choices have consequences, but you still have a choice. And that's the thing to remember. So what I bring to the ring is the choice, and I tell the individuals there in front of a live audience the truth of what's going on around the world around them. If they want to hear it or not, that's up to them. Again, choice. And then whatever happens after that bell rings, that's what happens after that bell rings.
Yeah, well, like you said, they have consequences. They made their choice. They let the bell ring. They could have found the light ahead of time and
Yes, sir. I've
have to
gone
ring.
as far. I've gone as far in the past that I offered my United States Championship title to Mr. Antonio Andolini, and he denied it. You know, he denied it. And now he is the current PAPW U.S. champion. He did get the better of me. However, if you look at that match afterwards, the connection between him and that referee, I don't know, was on the up and up, the straight and narrow, but that's a conversation for another time.
So that, it's great that you did bring that up, because that was actually a topic I had on my notes here. You held the
You are a hell
PAPW.
of a prepared individual. I want you to know. I know that you already know, but I wanted to give you credit in front of everyone who watches this, that you are a very prepared man. I like that. That's a good quality in anybody. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I take that. I take that very much. Thank you. But you held that PAPW US Championship for a long, dominant reign.
Yes, sir. Almost a year.
Yes, especially around here, that's a long time. Let's be honest.
A lot of great talent around. It's a tough playing field.
Did that, and I put it in this context, did that title of, awaken any power within the forest? Did it, having that title for such a long time, especially,
So I feel that gold in the forest brought a little more value, a little more credence, having that accolade attached to myself, and by proxy, my brothers and sisters within the Forest of the Lost. But I will tell you, more so than holding the title, it wasn't until it was taken from me that I experienced a greater awakening, because now I'm able to focus more on my actual mission. And that is to guide each and every one of you to your better life. I don't have to worry about defending that piece of metal. I don't have to worry about the other things that go along with it. So now I can be purely focused. And as I've said, there already has been, but there will continue to be a different side of Sylvan Moreland that you haven't seen. And I can assure you that a lot of you probably aren't going to want to see it. But again, as I've said, I shall not be responsible for what's going to happen. Everything is a choice. And by those individuals making their choice, my actions are already determined. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. You even answered my second question, because I was going to ask what had occurred in the forest after you had had the title taken from you. So you two birds for sure. You got me on both of those ones.
I appreciate you letting me know. I'm just trying to be as prepared as you, my man. I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve that you set down as presidents. At first, it was a little bit sombering. People weren't sure how to react. They weren't sure, that is Sylvan going to be angry? Is he going to be upset? What's he going to do? Is he still going to be the same person? Can I still talk to him? And I think the answer to all those questions is yes, that I am different for the better. They can still all talk to me. Was I upset at first? Yes, I was. But again, then thinking that critical thinking, going back to what we talked about, how can I learn from this? How can I get better? How can I apply this experience to build and go and level up? Right? And so after that, so as I returned back, it was that evening and then the following day. However, on the third day, imagine that. On the third day, it was a celebration. It was a celebration because it was my own awakening. As everyone beheld, Sylvan had an additional awakening prior to the many that I've had before that led me to begin the Forest of the Lost. So everything is as it was. Everybody is, if anything, people are even more invigorated to spread the word of truth, to travel forward, to bring the light to the world of darkness, to remove the masks of the faceless individuals who inhabit this area, this world, this planet, this earth, this rock that we're on for only so long, depending on your beliefs. And that's another discussion that we can have if you want to, because I have my own specific things. But enjoy the time while you're here and make the most of it instead of living in the past. You get anchored down and then you're weighed to yesterday. Well, yesterday was Thursday. And if I anchor myself down, I might blink and go, it's actually Wednesday, but I'm still living in Thursday of last week. Why? Why? That's almost a week that you haven't tried to progress forward. Right? It's, when I try and make everything, and I know I don't have to because you're a very insightful, intelligent man, but there's many people that don't understand. You have to simplify it, which I feel that I am very adept in doing. You have to simplify it to put it in the terms that people will understand, regardless of generation, regardless of environment, regardless of educational level. But when you put it out there really like that, it's pretty simple. I think so. My brothers and sisters think so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And guess you could say the Beatles said it about yesterday. That all your troubles, they seem so far away, but they are here to stay.
It's all a matter of mindset and mentality. You're going to let them stay. You're going to kick them out. So get out of here. I ain't got time for that. I'm still going to remember, but I got a strong bag. But if I pile everything into a bag, I'm going to be moving slower. So if I got all that stuff weighing me backwards, it's pretty hard to take a step forward. Like I said, to continue to progress, to get that traction to go forward. And then eventually what's going to happen? You're going to fall on your back like a turtle. You got too much weight in that bag. Now what? And now you're on your back and you're hoping and praying and pleading to the powers that be that someone comes and flips you over to save you. And I will tell people, if you need someone to talk to or just someone to listen to vent, if you've got nobody else in this world, I am here for you. Even if you do have other people, I'm still here. But I try and impart that everybody, every single person, from a CEO of the company to the person who's doing any other job, you need at least one person. And this is another message that I've posted in the past. I should post it up again to remind people. You need at least one person, because everyone has a limit. Even me, even you, everyone's got a limit. And you need that person to talk to that you can trust. And sometimes they'll just shut up and listen. They won't even say anything. Some of the best experiences and the best help is the person just sitting there and going like this. And a lot of times you'll find if you just talk, you'll actually be able to solve your own problem. And you go, how many times do we really listen to ourselves speak? That's why if you talk out loud to yourself, you're not crazy. I think you're more insightful than anyone else.
I mean,
You have that conversation, you find out new things.
Yeah. I mean, if there's no one else to talk to, and from a purely psychological standpoint, it's better to have someone to speak with and have someone to work with. So,
Absolutely. Humans are a communal creature. At the end of the day, I mean, we're animals, right? We're all animals. We might be the cruelest of all, but we're still animals. Top of the food chain and all that, right? But
exactly.
it's still wired in there.
And this particular podcast actually gives me there's some insight that I can drop on the audience that you would honestly be the perfect person to speak to about this particular subject, because you just said it. You queued me up very well. Humans are communal.
They're a good team, man.
I'll note that for after. Humans are communal, and one thing, and you spoke about it, you spoke about many things, and while I speak, the examples will come to mind here. A lot of people these days, especially, will sit there and say, oh, well, back in the 1950s or the 1960s, things were so much easier and so much better and so much whatever. And they get so hyper focused on it. And it's become almost a life journey for me now to remind them that, yes, after World War II, America saw something that has never been seen before, where one man can work one job and pay for everything. And that was great. That was wonderful. But let's be honest, people, that was a fluke. It will probably never happen again. If you look throughout the time of humanity, throughout the time of any civilization, we have always been communal. We have always had to work together in order to have a happy life. So yes, maybe for 20 years, we didn't have to do that. But why does that negate the other tens of thousands of years when we were tribes? Why does it negate the hundreds of years where you lived as families and you took care of each other? Why is it that people I know who are 40 or 50 years old can barely pay the bills, but they still expect their 18 or 20-year-old to move out on their own and afford an apartment? How does that make sense when you can't afford an apartment? And not to mention, if you think you're going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be magically better, it's not. It's not going to be better.
You might as well stay asleep, because that's a dream, man.
You're dreaming. And for me, I've already seen the answers. Let me be honest, right? When I was growing up in Lowell, there was a wonderful cacophony of Cambodians and Laotians and people from Thailand and all kinds of places. You know what I saw them do? They were a community. They were actual families who were working together for the betterment of themselves and their family. They actually, sure, maybe their spaces were a little more tighter or cramped than we did, right? But they never worried about the bills. They never worried about food being on the table. They never worried about many of the things that the rest of us who have too much pride can just look in the mirror and say that what we're doing now doesn't work. We're lucky that it ever worked, and it's never going to work again. So why don't we just build a bridge and get the fuck over it already?
100%. And I think that, it's, the saying, how long has it been around, that it takes a village? And of course, that's in the mindset of like a child. Why is that not different? Why is that not inclusive of other things? It takes a village, right? And also, it's very interesting that you talked about, the individuals to help each other. Well, I think part of the problem too is excess. Those individuals that might have lived in a tighter space, but they had the necessities. Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have the human interaction? Because I feel that while it's not on that list of needed things, you need that interaction and someone to talk to be able to converse with. You look at cavemen, right? It's not like there was just one person painting on the walls in there. No. You imagine if there's multiple people in there. Plus, they had to do something for entertainment, right? They didn't have iPads. They could make a podcast going, I really think that, I don't know, making fire this way is better than that. But all these different things. It's all, like you said, it's communal. And it's, I feel that's lost on a lot of people. But here in the Forest of the Lost, again, that's, if you listen to my theme music and it goes in and it says, the Forest of the Lost, the land time forgot. So that whole song is written by me. Those are my lyrics. And that's what the forest is. We try and live in a land before it was taken over by all these different things. The social media and all of this. And the worst part, one thing that I think about, say if you're a gym goer, right? Or you do some athletic event, or you're involved in some specialized area. Well, maybe the only people you would used to have to really look at and compete with are the people in your general area. Maybe at the same gym, in your office, within your company. Okay. Now, you have access to hundreds of thousands, upwards of millions of people. Oh, my arm's bigger than his. Do my abs look better? Oh, they make this much money. How much money do I make? Right? And so now it's this comparative mentality that's even more so, which is terrifying for the future generation. And one thing that I teach my little brothers and sisters and the children within the Forest of the Lost is try not to compare yourself to others, because you have no control over what their environment was. Maybe they had all the assets, the accolades. Maybe they had a lot of money. They had the big house. Maybe they never had to work an actual day in their life. So they could fully focus on one individual specialized thing. And power to them, they worked on it. But they didn't have other things to concern themselves with. Right? So, and that goes back to the product of environment. Don't allow that to be your inhibiting factor. Compare yourself to the previous you. You see a lot of times these people use an AI and they say, your next opponent is you. And it shows a younger version of them in the current version. All right, let's do that. Let's look at myself from 5 years ago. Where was I? What were my goals then? Let me write it down. Let me make sure I don't just toss it in the stack with a bunch of other books, or I clean my room and it gets tossed in the trash. If you got to put it on your phone, let's treat it like that, because we know people treat the phone better than they treat the good book anymore, right? It does that around on a fire and flame. But heaven forbid that phone anything happens. But that being said, think of comparing yourself to a previous you and actually make strides. And if it hasn't changed, ask yourself, why hasn't it changed? What am I doing? Or what am I not doing? What are the inhibiting factors? If it's things that you don't fully have control over, try not to worry about it then. Because if you don't, listen, if you got to pay taxes or electricity, right, which we do, and that dollar amount keeps going up, well, we don't necessarily have control of that. Okay. And that's a whole other thing entirely. But those things around us, do you have a condition? Do you have, maybe there's a person that maybe they have one leg. Okay, maybe they have another disability. Maybe they got something going on. Okay, how many successful people have you seen with things like that are wildly, highly successful? Because they don't use that as their crutch. They don't use that as an excuse to stay in the back while other people rise up to the front to take front and center stage on this grand play of life. Right? Instead, absolutely, so many people choose to just sit in the back. A lot of them, right, since we're going down that path, they don't even walk in the theater. They're getting popcorn and drinks, and they're staying there. They're not even ready to enter the theater because they're too afraid that maybe I won't get what I want. Maybe I won't accomplish these lofty expectations or goals that I've put for myself. There's a couple old sayings that come to mind that I think is the one that's pretty common. If you try and shoot for the moon and you fall short, you'll still be among the stars. Right? And that's something to hold true, because at least you try. And if you look around you, speaking of stars, all those people around you are stars in their own right or have a potential to be. Sometimes people just need a reminder of that. And if you think that someone held you down or you've been so now you get me fired up. I'm getting excited now because one of the greatest gifts that people can give to you is underestimation. Let them. Let them.
Absolutely.
Because they're not going to see it
Absolutely.
coming. And they'll go, oh my goodness, this person did that. And they did this and they did that. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Well, one of the best forms of revenge is to become wildly successful.
Absolutely.
That's another old quote from a great man. One of the best forms of revenge is becoming wildly successful. In your face. And you know what? I didn't have to spit back and forth with you and yell and holler and bang on the table. I did it with my actions. Action. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the thing. To get off, don't commit the sin of sloth by sitting and loafing around. Get out there and do something. Ask yourself, what have I done to better myself today? What have I done to better the community around me? And the expectation is not for that to be every day because that's unrealistic. But try and do something. Even if it's something, hey, everyone's on social media, this and that. If you see a post like you said about that young girl, hey, I see this post and that pulled on my heartstring. Hey, it doesn't take nothing to put a like. It doesn't say it takes really anything to put a comment in there. Throw $1 or $2 their way. Right? If these other individuals such as yourself that are creating great content, these other, wrestlers, these singers, these artists, all these other people out there, the person standing behind the bar making you drink. Thank you is 2 words and it costs nothing. It costs nothing. I've had brothers and sisters that have sent me messages from the things that I've put out and posted that simply say, thank you. That makes my world. Thank you. I needed to hear this. I needed this today. I've been in bed for 2 days. This made me get up and do something and get off my ass to make a difference in my world, in my life. Because if you look at every day as a little life, go forward like that. And then think about how many life deaths have occurred by those wasted days. Now think about the possibility of how many daily lives you can live. So at the end of those days, those lives, you can look in the mirror and tell that person looking back at you, hey, we didn't do everything that we wanted to, or we might have set out. But hey, we tried. We tried and did what we could. You're still doing something, right? 0.1% is more than 0. Right?
Yeah.
Even if it's an eighth of an inch.
You hit so many, once again, you hit so many great points. I absolutely love Al Pacino in The Devil's Advocate. He says it himself. He says it very, very pointedly. He says, never let them see you coming. He's the hand up Mona Lisa skirt, right? And I can't pretend like in my 20s, I wasn't the guy who was maybe a little flashy, maybe a little, egocentric at times. And then I saw that movie for the first time and I thought to myself, that's such a better line. It's such a better way to live because there is nothing like a person's face when they've underestimated you and you have shown them why you were confident to be there in the first place. And for myself, when I was 29, it was right before I was diagnosed with celiac. So I was just sick all the time. I was overweight, I was unhealthy, etc. And I started watching all these different documentaries about the food we eat and how fake it is, and the world we are living in and how fake it is. Let's be real. And I told myself I can either continue to live this way and be unhealthy, since that's the result I'm getting, or I can change it. and I can do better. And there's a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, where a gentleman decides to go on a juice cleanse for 90 days to see if he can make his body better. And I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to juice cleanse for 30 days and see how good I can be. And I got so much kickback. So many people all over the internet were just like, no, you can't do that. And I kind of get where they were coming from. At the time, I had been working for the Texas Roadhouse for 10 years. And they're like, you're going to stop eating food so you can just drink a vegetable? That's weird. And I said, you know what? You don't think I can do it for 30 days? I'm going to do it for 60 days. And they're like, nah, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm going to do it for 90 days. And they're like, nah, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then you know what I said to them? I said, you know what? I'm just going to go vegan and just never eat that stuff again. And they said, you can't do that. That was 14 years ago and I'm still vegan. And every time I wake up, every day I wake up and I choose to not eat any of that food is one more fuck you in the face of every single person who told me I couldn't do it for 30 days.
Sounds like a pretty good story of revenge, brother. Sounds like you got your revenge by being wildly successful. So there you go. Exactly. You know, and people, I'm not going to say that people can't tell you that you can't, because people can do whatever they want. Right? They can do whatever they want. But their opinion is not your reality. There'd be a lot of other people that would buckle under that peer pressure and say, maybe it is too hard. You know, maybe that is silly. Maybe, what if this or this or this happened? On the negative side, instead of looking at, well, what if this and this and this happens on the positive side, right? You know, there's plenty of times that people have said, you can't do that, or use that as motivation. Use that as motivation. If you're lifting weights or you're doing something or you're going for some type of special degree or anything like that. Hell, if you want to start wrestling, you go into training. Well, that's silly. You could get hurt. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? Well, I'm sure that there's been a lot of professional athletes. There's been a lot of professional musicians. There's been a lot of professionals in a lot of different aspects that people said you can't do that or you're no good. Well, if they had listened, maybe you never would have got, Tom Brady or, whoever, someone like that. Since we are in New England, that's, let's look at Tom.
It's easy. It's easy. He was 7th round draft pick. Nobody thought he would do anything. He was a second stringer, and then
he started as a third stringer in Michigan State in college. He barely played.
We had Drew Bledsoe. He thought he was going to be the best ever, and then lost the Super Bowl. And he gets hurt, and boom, we're 6 rings later. We might have lost a couple, but we still got 6 rings, guys. So in your face.
David Tyree face mask catch. Unbelievable.
Right. Unbelievable. I know I can say that nature. I can even give you one more here, because me growing up in the environment I did at a young age, almost everyone was on some form of illicit substance. And I saw these people really degrade their lives because of it. And I would tell them to their face, like, I don't understand why you do this. I don't. You clearly, it was escapism. Let's be honest. It was escapism. They thought they were having fun. And to this day, I'm 40 years old. I've never even smoked pot. And it's literally because of the fact that these people told me that because of the environment I was in, it predetermined that I had to do drugs. So because of that, I've never done anything ever. I've never smoked pot, never smoked a cigarette, never.
Feel like you're missing out? You feel like you're missing out on anything?
Not at all.
Right.
Because
it's
once again,
choice and decision.
Exactly. And once again, most of those people are either dead or in jail at this point. So where did that decision get them? Where did the consequences and repercussions of their choices lead them to pass? Not very good places, I would say. Not very good places.
And forever and always, even, when I was a young man, my daddy used to always tell me, cause and effect, son, for every reaction, there's a reaction. And to this day, I still hold that true. Bless him. And it's just that thing to think of. If I do this, what'll happen? Positive or negative? You weigh it, right? Is the saying I like to use, is the juice worth the squeeze? And if it's not, well, if the risk isn't worth it, then okay. But if you got nothing to lose anyway, why not take a shot?
Yeah. And that's a thing, just I've only been, I've been in wrestling school myself for about 6 months now. And a lot of people would be like, you're 40 years old. That's crazy. You shouldn't do it. And if I believed them, then I would still be sitting there not trying. And then sometime when I hit 50 or 60, I would be like, oh, well, I missed the boat. I missed the boat. I could have done it. What if? I don't want to be that. There's 9 to 5 jobs are always there. They're always going to be there. There's always going to be an office that needs an assistant. Okay. And yeah, maybe I'm too old to make it to the WWE. Not that I'd want to anyways at this point, but my whole thing is this, right? I would rather be able to look in the mirror as a man when I'm 50, 60, 70 and say, I gave it everything I have. Maybe I failed. Maybe I was the shittiest wrestler. Maybe I walked in that building and they booed me out because I was garbage. But I'd rather get booed out and look like absolute dog shit than to have and have the actual courage and bravery to try than to have to live with the fact that I was such a coward. I did nothing about it.
There is failure. And to compound upon that, even
failure. I like that.
If you don't mind me asking, do you have children?
I have 3 children. Yep.
You have 3 children that look up to dad. And if daddy wasn't willing to follow his dreams and give it a shot and try, but he's telling me to do the same. Well, daddy, why didn't you? Why didn't you get in the ring and give it a shot? And you're going to tell me to live my dreams and step ahead and go and try and create these memories and experiences. So your children, as well as the people who look up to you in your life, damn, my man, all right. He tried. He gave it a shot because it's what he wanted to do. And he went up to reach for it. And now he's in the process of grabbing it. It's just a matter now working towards it. And then eventually you're going to pull it. Right? And so those are the things too of how our actions, again, actions, reaction for anything. If I don't do this, how am I going to be looked at by my children? Right.
No, and that's very true. It's very true. And my daughter, she goes with me to these shows, and her dream is to be a wrestling photographer.
Very good. Very nice young lady. I met her there at the show there a couple weeks ago. It was great to see you out there.
And thanks to Corey Von Quest, that guy's the best. She got to be ringside for the women's match of Vile versus Wildcat. And she got to take a lot of really great photographs. Once again, I love to say she's 13, so she's, they are doing their best, and maybe there's some technical difficulties at some times or whatever, but they are doing their absolute best to give the best product they can, and they work really hard to do it. And, exactly, it's all learning, and if there's been one thing so far of my journey into professional wrestling over the last year, it has been the fact that my daughter has found themselves, and that my daughter sees that they want to be a professional wrestling photographer, and that they have a passion and drive to do it. And they have had opportunities, and you spoke of it, and it was a real world scenario. So I put the 2 and 2 together, and it's absolutely true, because if a year ago I would have been so afraid to actually follow the dream and make the journey happen, that wouldn't happen for them whatsoever. Their life would be completely different. Everything around them would be completely different. I mean, and once again, this professional wrestling community, I could list names all day. I could list people like Johnny Pierce, who's like an uncle to my daughter. Selena and Julie Cutler and Kayla Lopez, and I could list 1,000 of them that are just great people, and they're just wonderful, and they care so much, and we love them as much as they love us, and we get to talk to them every day and text them, and those relationships wouldn't have been cultured if I didn't just simply have the balls to look at myself in the mirror and say that I wanted a different life and then try it. And once again, I'm not Chris Van Vliet. I don't have 6 million followers, but does that negate the idea?
Why?
Which I met him. I met him, by the way, and what a wonderful gentleman. Maven as well. Maven, I went to a show with Chris Van Vliet, and Maven was his special guest. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, go back and I got to blend my footage that I did with Chris Van Vliet's footage, and where I got to ask them questions and stuff, and it was
Very good.
phenomenal. But Maven got to throw some shade and say that I was the Chris with the best questions of the night. So that was pretty fun for
he's
me.
Trying to get you in trouble with Mr. Van Vliet now.
Yeah. I took it with a grain of salt, of course, but it was a wonderful time, all nonetheless. But it's you hit so many great chords in your videos in general today, especially with me, and hopefully with my audience and the audience at Broad. Which, once again, to those people, thank you so much. There's been a few people actually that have come up to me at random times and told me they've seen my stuff, and fans at shows have said they've seen my videos and were excited to meet me. And
it's spreading.
I genuinely didn't know what to say. So if I was awkward, it's because my brain could not process the fact that you, human being, was a fan of me. My brain did not get it. And shout out to superfan John Austin, because when I was telling him all that, he was like, "Well, I'm your fan. I'm your super fan. So I love you too, bro."
Awesome.
Such a great guy.
Hey, it's much deserved, man. I see all the work that you're putting in, and you're putting the miles on and everything, going to all these shows, just as much as the people working tomorrow. Just as much as the people in the ring. You're making the travels, and that's a beautiful thing that your girl's coming with you and everything. And also, with everything being said, that her coming to the shows and everything, I salute you, and I just want to say good job, Dad, because
thank you.
How you've raised her and talked to her, all these things cause an effect, right? She wouldn't have the confidence to ask them if she could partake in taking the photos and things like that. Maybe cower in a corner. But she's got a daddy who supports her and gave her that little nudge to say, "Hey, kid, you can do it. Why not? They can do it. What's any different between you and them?" Right? Okay, age, experience, whatever. They started somewhere too. We all start somewhere. You know what I mean? You talk about name the person that someone looks up to. They didn't start there. This person wasn't automatically. Oh, they were born and then they turned 18 years old and they're the CEO of this company. Come on now. I just didn't come out of mama, and then I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to start this whole new family in the Forest of the Lost with us. Come on, man. There's a buildup. So to respect the building blocks, to respect and experience that process, especially like you said in fatherhood, of seeing all these things, cause and effect, action, reaction, making a choice. If you didn't make the choice in Arizona, maybe you wouldn't be here, which means that those girls, your family, they wouldn't have existed in the first place. So, hey, thanks, Dad. I exist because of you. So, all right. So, right on, man. But I just wanted to say, in the old way of Mr. Barry Horowitz, give yourself a pat on the back.
And I'm
my man.
40. I've put 40,000 miles on my car in the last year. Going to shows. I started working at shows. I've been putting my feelers out to other places, be like, hey, you need someone to help you set up the ring? So I'm never one to think that my ego's so big I can't carry chairs. The military
it's amazing that Jimmy Hart. I've seen Mouse of the South, Mr. Jimmy Hart at his age. I've seen him walking with chairs. Unbelievable, right? Now I think people should go up and say, "Yeah, Mr. Hart, like, please, I'll
Carry the chair.
just go relax," like, right? And he probably
Yeah.
would say something like, "No, baby, I got it," and you say, "Yes, sir," and go
Yeah.
on about your business. But yeah,
Exactly.
it's there needs to be a level of everybody needs a level of ego in order to accomplish things because you have to be able to at least believe in yourself. It's a matter of crossing the line into egotism, which a lot of people they go from walking and they don't run or skip. They just go into jumping. They're kangaroo jumping. So invariably they go past that, and then a lot of folks get stuck on themselves.
Yeah. It's not an ideal situation for people. I mean, unless you have some kind of omnipotent magical powers that we're completely unaware of that were bestowed upon you, maybe you should sit down and take it easy is all I'm saying.
Yeah, get a
Um,
book. Get a book and write it down,
so man, you genuinely probably hit like 15 or 20 questions without me even having to ask that I was going to get them anyway. So
I told
my
you,
brain
I
just like this. I genuinely love the fact that you got there without me even having to do anything. It's
I guess that, man, we're a good team, brother.
we definitely are. So with all this being said, with all that being, and my brain's processing here, is there any, like, let's say, energy or ability that you feel being part of the force of the lost gives someone to, make tomorrow better?
It's a very
Is there
profound
something like
question.
that?
It's a very profound question. So I hope that I can give an answer that as fulfilling as that question was to me. So that being said, the things I've discussed of needing somebody to talk to, everyone needs somebody to lean on and everything like that. And we are that village mentality. The land time forgot that we are our own family. We're all right, brothers and sisters, right? In that sense, obviously not by bloodline because that would get a little weird. But besides the point, it's about remembering, and even if it means reminding each other, what do we have to do today to make tomorrow better? Because if you don't do anything, at best, tomorrow will stay the same. At best. And we always know that isn't always the case. So where do you have to go but down? Right? So again, sins of sloth are not permitted. Not permitted. They're addressed, right, individually within the force of the lost. We hold each other accountable. And that's the thing. There is a responsibility and accountability to one another. Right? So with that being said, the ability to be who you truly and being accepted as that individual. A lot of places that's very difficult. I mean, you feel like a stranger in an even stranger land, walking around a lot of times. People are judgmental. This person's hairstyle is different, or this person has a blemish of some sort, or that, and you even get into talking about, I don't want to make things political, but people's look on different religions and race and all these different. We're all on this rock for so long. So why are you going to spend your time that's limited? That is the most valuable resource available. And I'll get to that in a moment. Why are you going to waste your time trying to, take away the shine from other people? Because that person can't take off the mask. If they can't look within themselves and accept who they are, that they have to push other people down to try and build themselves up because maybe they are deep ashamed of themselves, but they're not willing to admit that. Well, maybe I'm not as good at this thing as that person is, and I'm envious, so I'm going to say that they're no good. Well, what does that do for you, though, realistically? Realistically, that does nothing for them. And I, as I talked about time is the most valuable resource. It's the only thing that's non-replenished. If you think about it, right? There's ways to make water. There's ways to make more oil. There's ways to do other things. There's oxygen generators. There's equipment that exists to do that process. When time's gone, you need to look back to the time you already used and think about how you used it. Don't dwell on it, but think about it as a farther message and farthering of learning. So there's a perfect, when you invited me on here, which again, thank you so much. I'm honored to be one of your guests on your show. So, and you made the choice to ask me, and I made the choice to say yes, because I knew that it would be worth my time. That was my choice. And if I didn't think, then that's also my choice. And I could have said, no, thank you. This time will never be replenished, but I'm glad that I spent it with you during our conversations. You know what I'm saying? So when people think about, well, let me go here and drink this poison, or let me put this thing in my veins, or let me go around and commit adultery, or all these different things, or even if it's something not that negative. I sat around and played video games all day. Okay. You do that every now and then. Okay. But for days and days and stretches, all those hours, what could you have done? Because you're not getting that time back. So those are the things that I try and have people get into the perspective of that critical thinking, like we talked about. Where did that time go? And the time that I spent on something to nurture, how does that one thing that I put the time into affect other things? Right? It's almost like a butterfly effect of sort. Because if you can make a difference of one person's life, I've had people say, you saved me when we talked and we had that conversation. I'm still here because we talked. And I say, you know what I say to them? You made that choice. I'm just here to support you, and I'm here for you. Now they could go on and maybe they see the same struggles that they saw in themselves, and they pull that person and say, hey, man, hey, let me talk to you. Hey, sister, cousin, friend, anybody. Hey, young lady, let me talk to you. Because if you don't, maybe there won't be a next time that you see them. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Maybe they make the choice and decision to remove themselves from this plane of existence, which happened. And it's regrettable. So if we can make a difference in the world around, the world in the future will be that much better. And the energy that we put out eventually returns back to, and it's a cycle. All these different things that go on, all the negativity in the world, because negativity breeds farther negativity. Right? And so you don't want a bunch of little negative babies running around and infecting the masses, because that's what happens.
It's true. It's true. The context I always put it in for people, because I like them to use visual metaphors. And I feel like they're more marginally speaking, they're more impactful. So I always like to tell people, think that you had a giant pot. It's a giant pot right in front of you. And you put all your negative thoughts, and you're standing in front of this giant pot of your negative thoughts, and you just put a spoon in there and you're spinning, right? What are you doing? You're just literally stewing in the juices of your own shit at that point. It's all you're smelling, smacking you in the face. And you're like, wow, this place is so shitty. Is it though? Or are you just stewing in your own shit? Complaining and complaining and complaining. Venting, I get it. Sometimes you got to vent. Sometimes you just got to get it off your chest. I had some really stupid stuff happen to me the other day, and I was like, oh, listen, I know this is dumb and I can't change it. I need to get this off my chest. Just listen to this. And then I moved on, dropped, let it go. But if you make the conscientious choice to live with it, to hold on to it, You're just smelling your own stew of nonsense and negativity. You're just living in it at all times. You're just wafting it in, and then you wonder why the whole room smells like it. It's like
burning your nostrils, man. Yeah, yeah. It's and that's the thing, and it's again like it all comes down to choice. It's a choice to stew in that in those vapors, you know. Or
absolutely
to dump the pot and say, I'm going to wash this because that's disgusting.
disgusting.
Okay. Or, you know what? After all that, let's just throw the whole damn pot out. Let's buy a new one. You know?
Yes.
You know, we can do
that's
that.
What they say, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a new result, right? Sometimes it's better just to throw the whole fucking thing out and to just start with something else.
Start over. Let's bulldoze that building.
Whatever you did is not. Sometimes it's just not fixable. Sometimes you just gotta let it go. I know me. You talked about time, right? I've been using, I talked about my daughter takes so many pictures. Well, she has 20,000 pictures that need to get on the internet. You can only post 10 pictures at a time in a post, and you have to do it manually and granularly. So what did I do? I just built an app. I dropped a file of 1,500 photos into the app, and it's been posting for me every 2 hours. And then just to make sure, I built a backup robot that checks everything at midnight. And if something didn't drop properly during the day, it fixes it and drops it. Or it tells me it doesn't fix it, and it sends me an email either way and lets me know what's been fixed, what's been posted, what couldn't be posted. So now I don't have to sit there all day posting their photography. There's a robot that does it for me. I built that robot to save my time because, as you said, it's not replenishable. There is only so much time in the day. And if I were to just be posting 20,000 pictures, that would take forever. If at the current rate, 2 hours, those 20,000 pictures would take 144 days. So if I want to drop them in a faster time frame, it's every 20 minutes. I'm going to drop 20,000 pictures every 20 minutes starting August 5th. That's a lot of stuff. That would be a full-time job, 80 hours a week.
Absolutely.
And it took me 4 hours while I was doing many other things. And actually, made this app, and now 153 batches were created in 2 minutes, and my time is back in my hands because we don't have that much.
You did that. You got to spend more time with your family. Hey,
exactly.
Time well spent.
Time well spent. All next week, posts will be done. Like 19 of the questions I had. I was like, all right, never mind. Answered it anyways.
Like I said, we'll turn this into a 4-hour show, baby.
We definitely got it. We definitely got to do this again. I think
I would love it. Yes, sir. Let me know time, place, and I'll be.
Absolutely, I love it. All right. So, with that being said, my last question for you today. You are the leader of the Force of the Lost. So I'd like to make sure I give you the platform to answer this question, and then anything else you'd like to say. So, we can wrap up today, and thank you so much for being on. It's been a genuine pleasure talking to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
My question is, why should maybe we could say every wrestling fan, or we could put it in those parlance terms. Why should people in general fear or embrace the call of the forest?
You said you wanted to get off of this thing, and then you asked me a question like that. You better tell the promotion you're going to be running late. Nah, I'll try and keep it short. For you. Well, it's, we talk all the time about a matter of faith and belief. So, and I've said in the past, if individuals choose to believe in me as much as I believe in them, they'll be able to reach heights that they never thought were possible. they'll be able to outlast and outreach, and potentially even, depending on their previous circumstances, outlive what they thought was possible and accomplish what they deserve. Right? Because what I am doing, I'm preparing everybody for the future, because I know what's to come. I've seen it ain't always pretty, but I do know what's to come, and I'm preparing each and every one of you for it. So when that moment comes, it arises, you can hold your loved ones safe and tell them and remind them that I am prepared. We will be safe, and we're all going to be taken care of because we have each other. And those individuals who choose not to, now you have to think, where will you be when that day comes? When there is that reckoning day, right? When people walking around on the daily with the sword of Damocles hanging over the head that they don't even know what's next to befall them. They don't know. It's the ignorance. It's this blissful ignorance that people go and walk about. And I've said before, you know who had a sword of Damocles hanging over his head? Julius Caesar. And what happened to him? He didn't know what was to befall him, right? And if people don't know or understand the reference of Sword of Damocles, I highly recommend you look it up. It's insightful and it's a good read. But all that being said, when you say yes, think of all of those possibilities for you to get what you deserve. And likewise, if you choose to deny, decline, and or say no, there's consequences for those actions. Because, as I say, these faceless individuals and the people who have not yet learned to listen to the word of truth, they can hate me now, and that's fine. But they'll thank me. So I hope that that's an acceptable answer to your question, sir.
Absolutely.
Because if you aren't prepared for what's to come, well, then you'll just have to live with that decision as.
Yep. Absolutely. Those are very strong words. Very, very wonderful answer there, sir. Once again, I very much appreciate your time.
Yes.
And we'll definitely have to do this one again, and we'll make sure to get a time and a date so we can go for 4 hours. I wouldn't mind breaking my record.
That's right.
I wouldn't mind breaking my record. I think the record is I did a podcast with Corey Von Quest. I think it was like 3.5 hours or something. So 4 hours. Let's break the record.
Hey, we got it. I've got stickers. I got to get shirts made. They say Big Stick Energy for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Because we can go. We'll be all right. I can last.
There you go.
If I may, real quick, I just want to all the social media stuff. Facebook, you can type in Sylvan or the Forest of the Lost. You'll find me there. Now for Instagram, TikTok, as well as YouTube, if you type in Sylvan Moreland, SYLVAN, and then Moreland as in more land, MORELAND. And that's where you're going to find me. So try and keep it simple and easy for everybody. Like I said, July 25th, Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling is Unbreakable. August 8th, that's a Saturday, Pure Vanguard Wrestling Face-Off. August 22nd, back at Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling. Then wait a little bit later, we're looking at September 26th for New Order Wrestling once again. So I'll be showing this handsome face there. I also want to give a shout out to Mr. DeForge and his team of Running Scared Wrestling, but also Running Scared Motion Pictures, which here in the near future, we're going to be doing some work together. So again, you'll see this face and this voice, maybe in some potential acting roles, some things like that. So Mr. Moreland is trying to expand his horizons and get out there a little more. So, and again, as always, if any of you out there see me at shows or anywhere about, please, I humbly ask of you, do not hesitate to talk. As you've seen here, I can talk for a long time, maybe a little too long at times. So I'm going to wrap this up so you can get going to your event, brother. But please, because I want to hear your story. I want to hear where you came from. I want to hear how we can help each other, learn from one another, and help make one another better going forward. Or if you just say, hey, good show, Sylvan. I appreciate that. And I'll say, thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the support of the fans, the promotions, as well as individuals like yourself, sir. Like I said, everyone who's involved in the journalism side. And also give a big shout out to your baby girl as well and all the photos that she takes, because she doesn't have to do that. But she does because she chooses to, and it helps us as well. So thank you to each and every one of you who support us. I only hope that we're able in return to give you what you do. That's all I got to say about that, brother. Before you're
There you go. So thank you so much. For anybody who's wondering who's next on the list, Mr. Deliciously Vicious Vern Vicalo should be the next episode dropping. And as I said, Killer J is on the horizon as well. So I'll leave those two because I genuinely can't think of. I know I have a few more there, anyways. But for everyone else, thank you for watching. Sylvan, thank you for being here so much, and everybody else, we'll see you on the next one.